All right, folks, we are live. Welcome to the show tonight, everybody. As always, I am your host, Tori LaFoon.
I'm Craig.
And we are here to talk some disc golf. All right, folks, we are live. Welcome to the show tonight, everybody. I don't want to listen to myself. Buddy, here. That's kind of weird. But what do you got for your beverage of the evening tonight, Craig?
Oh, just the water. Just the old standby. I think I've gone with that about every week.
I am back once again with the sweet tea out of the mason jar. I know some people had some thoughts about that. I won't say who. I won't say why or what the deal was. But some people had some.
I don't know that they even watched. I think they just saw the little video clip we shared on Instagram. I just saw the still shot of you with a mason jar of sweet tea.
Dude, you can't beat it. The great thing is it's fresh
good
brewed.
Stuff.
It's fresh brewed sweet tea, and just poured it over ice. It's perfect.
Yeah, that's good stuff then.
Yeah, love it. So no guest to lead the show tonight. No first segment interview. So we're gonna lead the show with some talk about the Memorial. For those of you that follow professional disc golf, which I would assume would probably be a lot of you guys out there. I know we do, even though we're not good and we'll never be pros. We follow the pro game pretty closely. So. Craig, were you surprised about the outcome of the Memorial at all?
I wasn't surprised. I guess the overall, a little surprised from round to round, just to see some of the guys either start off poorly and then charge at the end, or vice versa. But overall, at the beginning of the year, I kind of figured that it would be Eagle and Simon's year, and it would be those two battling it out. For the most part, I think I've told you that. But
yeah, you called it on the show at one point. You said you said that you were looking for Discmania to have a pretty big year, and it was going to be anchored by those two.
Yeah, I mean, a lot gets made of a lot of the guys switching companies and whatever, but I think Eagle and Simon have been right there at that point for the last few years and just haven't been able to turn the corner and really take off. And I think now is the time that they're really. The door is open and the possibilities are endless for those two guys right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're young guys. We were talking this weekend that those guys are two young guys, but they've both been pretty high profile on the tour for, going back 2-3 years at minimum. I mean, Simon has been pro since like 2007 or 2008 or something like that.
Yeah.
But he kind of erupted onto the scene. He had that there was some like California kind of disc challenge or something, and he threw an ace off of like the Huntington Beach Pier or something crazy like that, and there was a video of it, and it might have made ESPN or something, and he threw a big ace, and he was like a young kid, and that's kind of when he exploded on the scene. And then he's competed in a bunch of the European Opens, obviously, and those have been getting more and more coverage. People have seen him out there playing and stuff and got him in their heads. And now there was a comment by the live coverage of the tournament. I think it was Valerie. I don't know. It was, with Nate Dawson, Valerie Jenkins on the call this weekend. I think she made the comment that he was like a veteran because he has been here a bunch of times. But just thinking about that guy at like 20, however old he is, 24, 25, I don't know.
Yeah, somewhere right around there. I'm not sure.
Oh no, I think I looked it up. I think he's 28. I think I saw that he was 28. Because we were talking a lot about this new kind of young wave of disc golfers that are coming in that are going to just shake up the game here over the next couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, it was this offseason I watched, I think it was on his YouTube channel, one of his vlogs, and he was talking about his journey just to where he is now. And it was really interesting to see just how young he was when he started and how he started. And he really kind of took off. I remember seeing him when he was doing like all the trick shot videos and stuff at the skate park and all those, throwing it through that bowl or whatever it was called, and it was coming back to him. He was catching it between his legs and stuff. Yeah. So
he threw Simon's from that riverbank. He threw onto a basket on top of their touring truck. That was one that was
pretty cool. He's always been a guy that I've always liked and followed since I really got into disc golf in like 2015, 2014 probably. He's been somebody that I've always really liked. He's obviously had injuries and have kept him from competing at the highest level sometimes, and seems to have some troubles closing things out. Eagle as well. But so far so good for those two guys. It was a little bumpy road there for Simon in round 3. He started out pretty rough, and I know I was texting you during it. I don't think you were watching, but
scores here. We got the round by round on the
yeah,
stream here.
he just started out rough. Started out, going OB, and a couple different times. There was one hole I think he went OB, and then went to throw his next drive, and somebody's cell phone went off.
Yeah, you were
when he was
about it.
I think he was putting on that hole, and somebody's cell phone started going off, and he just kind of stepped back, and I was like, "What in the world?" And then there was the one shot where he had gone out of bounds, and he was so upset, and he turned around, went to his bag, and grabbed a bag of Cheez-Its and tried to open them, and couldn't get them open. And he's like, "What the heck?" So nothing really was going right for him in round 3, and that really opened the door for Eagle, and Eagle took full advantage of it and just kind of ran away with it at that point.
Yeah, I think what has potentially played into kind of the frustration and the up and down play from Simon especially, and maybe this was just part of him being one of the younger guys on tour. I think Eagle has been able to kind of learn from him in this, and that Simon was just always so hyper aggressive. I feel like he was always going. He understood that he could throw it farther than anybody. The Crush Boys, whatever you want to call them. So he was just always super aggressive, and he'd run putts that were well outside the circle, and then he'd put a dinker off the cage or something like that. And I think that has, as he's kind of grown up and as he's kind of played more and kind of settled in, he knows when to take those risks now, and he knows when to kind of soft pedal it and just be conservative and throw the shots that he knows that he can, as opposed to the ones that he thinks can get him to the basket and one and give him a shot at an eagle on a par 4 or something like that.
Right.
But that's been something that I've been impressed with from the both of them. Their game is so similar now. It's always been a little bit similar, but their game is so almost identical that going into this weekend at Fountain Hills, it was like you could just tell that they were gonna attack, especially at the Fountain Hills course, less so at Vista, but they were gonna attack and they were gonna go for some pretty low scores, and that's exactly what they did. I mean, they shot 1,100 plus rated rounds on the same card, I think, even, but definitely on the same day.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think just the direction that disc golf is going right now in general is crazy. We've talked about it. Just the youth movement in disc golf, and I was thinking tonight, what if Paul or Ricky never wins another Worlds? I mean,
I think it's entirely possible.
It's a possibility. I mean, Eagle is. I would still say Paul is still the face of disc golf, but Eagle is certainly charging up there. He's really taken off. I mean, he's 20 years old right now. He's
20 or 21. He's young.
Yeah,
he's a very young kid,
and just incredibly talented. And just the way he goes about it is kind of unreal. I know him and Paul are friends. They play some rounds together and whatnot. But I find it interesting that I've heard him multiple times in his vlogs, refer to Paul as Captain Discraft, or like make digs at Paul for going to Discraft. And I almost wonder if something happened there to where, I don't know. It's
all speculation.
I don't want to say too much, but I just wonder. I don't say that because I know something, but I don't want to say too much and look like a clown. But I just wonder if something had happened, whether directly happened or just in talks had happened, and that's maybe part of why Paul left Innova. But Eagle, I've definitely heard him multiple times take digs at Paul for going to Discraft. So maybe it's just two friends joking around. Maybe that's all it is. But either way, Eagle is killing the sport right now and got a lot of youth following in that.
Yeah, I mean, and look at on the women's side, another 20-year-old taking that tournament down, Evelina. I can never get her last name right, but I mean, she held off Paige Pierce, and talk about somebody, like, not to come down on her, obviously still early in the season, but talk about somebody who has kind of been up and down to start this year on the female side. Like, she put together some good rounds, but she also had some really bad rounds and some bad holes too. Like, it was just crazy to see somebody who you look at her and maybe Katrina Allen and Jessica Weiss and those girls that we've seen at the top of the cards, end of last year, beginning of this year. Mm-hmm. And for her just to apparently struggle as much as she has was surprising. But at the end, she was still, right there. She came in second place. So
Yeah, it was round 3, I believe. Yeah, when they were on 18 and had a 3-shot swing because Paige had gone in the water twice, and Evelina was able to get, I believe, a birdie on that hole. But just a huge momentum swing, and then from that point on, it was just kind of not downhill, but just opened the door for Evelina, and she just ran with it, which she played really well in Vegas last weekend, and was right up there until I think round 4. She kind of dropped off a little bit, and the leaders kind of took control of it. But she's played well this season, and she's another one that I think she's only 20 years old or something they were saying, and it's just crazy to see. Obviously, it's still early, and there's so much left in the season that maybe at the end of the year we're not even talking about these people. But she was right up there last year, and obviously Eagle is right up there, so he's not going anywhere either. But some of these other names that have been at the top of the tournament list, maybe we're not talking about them as much as the season goes because guys like, I don't know, Paul Ulibarri comes to mind off the top of my head. Not that he played bad, but he finished, what did he even finish here?
I'm looking for him right now. We got
obviously not
44.
Yeah,
Paul finished 29th at 27 under. Hard to say that somebody has a bad round or a bad tournament when they shoot 27 under.
Right.
But
and Kevin Jones right there.
Kevin Jones is there. Like, Austin Hannum, who had a pretty good Las Vegas challenge.
So it's just there's some guys that maybe aren't playing to the top of their game yet, and it's still early. I mean, this is the second tournament that we've seen, all the players at. So it'll be interesting to see as the season goes who's up there at the top.
Yeah, but I mean, just even looking at this field that competed at the Memorial, you've got Eagle at the top, obviously top 4 finished. Eagle, Simon, Yale Stewart, who really impressed me. He went 44, 46, 47 in the first 3 rounds and finished with a 52. Yeah. But there were regular, I think maybe it was round 3, maybe it was round 4, but there was one time where he was like 8 down through 8, and the other guys were kind of bouncing up and down. They'd take a birdie, they'd take a I think somebody had like an eagle and then a bogey or something like that. People were really riding the roller coaster around, and he was just steady, locked in, and
that's what it's all about too.
Yeah, and
just consistency.
Yeah. And he's another name he's a young guy. He's been around. He's been pro since like 2004, 2006. Let's take a look here and see. So 2007, yeah. So he's been pro for a really long time, and he's competed over in Europe when the national tour and world tour goes over there. But to see him come over here and play at the Memorial and put up that kind of round, that's pretty cool. Here's another thing we were talking about. Look at the PDGA numbers for Simon and Yale. 2 European guys. They got PDGA numbers relatively close to each other. Under that 10,000 number. Under that 10,000 kind of cutoff. In 2007 when they got their PDGA numbers. So from that time till 2000, I think 11 or 12 when I got my number, when it was in the 50,000s. And even, you see Eagle, that he couldn't have been that much further past, and it's pushing 40,000. That just goes to show how crazy fast this sport has taken off over the last decade.
It's blown up.
Yeah.
And I think the youth movement and just the coverage that we're being able to be provided for these tournaments is only helping to make that blow up even more.
Absolutely.
Even like 3 years ago, when we got started in the whole disc golf store or whatever, there were so many people that didn't know what disc golf was around here, and still there's a lot of people that don't know, but not nearly as many as even 3 years ago. Tons of people, I saw so and so shot on SportsCenter, or was going around the internet or whatever, or I heard about this tournament. What's this tournament? And they've just seen coverage pop up on their suggested YouTube videos or something, which is awesome. I think the more that we can pump, obviously there's a lot of older guys that have done a lot for the sport, and I don't want to just push them out of there, but a lot of this youth is really good for the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, this is 2011, 2012. The only place I can really find anything going on talking about disc golf was on discgolfreview.com, discgolfcoursereview.com, the forum sites. And from those sites, I was able to find older coverage. Kind of, at that time it was current, and then a couple years before that. But, like, I got to watch I found a YouTube video, I think, of when Nate Doss won the Worlds in 08 or 09, whenever he won his world title, and it was like Crazy John Brooks on the call, which I don't even know if you know that name, but he was like the guy for a while.
Yeah, I've watched it.
And Smashbox TV, which obviously Terry Crews Terry still does a whole lot of good stuff with the disc golf guy, but there's so many more high quality, really talented video production guys doing strictly disc golf content. Like, that's their whole jam, and it just, I mean, it's amazing to watch.
Yeah,
and kind of tying these two in really quick before we move on. The Central Coast Disc Golf, I was just telling you today, had some coverage of some random tournament in Missouri, and there's a 14-year-old kid on a lead card throwing 430 feet or something like that. It was insane.
Yeah, that's crazy. I know a lot of people wanted to make a lot of beef about Disc Golf Pro Tour and kicking all of those media coverage out of their events and taking it in-house and everything. And, yeah, the first round, maybe round and a half, were a little rough. But what do you expect? I mean, it's their first. I thought Val and Nate did an awesome job. I don't know that they are naturally gifted as commentators, but they, as the weekend went, they got better and better, and their backdrops got better and better. I know a lot of people made digs at them for that, but I mean, what do you expect? They're not at the tournament.
Right.
I kind of always laugh when they're I'd cut back to them and they're like, yeah, back here in the booth, and no, you're
in Oregon. Yeah.
But I thought it was good. I thought the whole tournament, I mean, the first round, I know you and I were texting Thursday about it during the day, and I was like, man, this is awful. It keeps freezing. It keeps just, like, lagging. The video quality is awful.
Right.
And you said it went from, like, 1,000 or 1,500 people to, like, 200 or something crazy. It dropped people watching. But I tuned in on Saturday and Sunday and watched. Saturday I watched pretty much all of FPO and MPO.
Yeah. And a lot of people joined you. I mean, for all the crap that people made about that first day and how bad it went, I mean, there were people on Reddit saying, everybody go unsubscribe, everybody give thumbs down on the video, let them know that we're not pleased. And I get it. Like, there's a lot of things that you have to consider from the perspective of DGPT when you're thinking about, okay, we want to make this the premier tour, we want to do live coverage, we want to do it a whole package. They're probably 2 years, maybe a year with how fast things are moving. They're probably a year to 2 years away from really being able to do it really well, but they have to start somewhere, and what's going to happen is these guys who are known for making disc golf content, your Joe Mezes and your Central Coast and your Johnny Disc Golf now, they're going to have to find other places to go and shoot disc golf coverage, which is going to give more exposure to the sport at lower and lower levels, where people who are up and coming are going to be able to get coverage and people's eyes on them and their names start to be recognized within the community. And that's just one of those rising tides raises all ships kind of situations to me. I mean, yeah, there's competition for eyes right now, but what about when there's more eyes to compete over, and you're not talking about locking people out, you're talking about opening up more eyes to seeing disc golf content. And I think that's really the ultimate goal. I mean, I know that's our goal. We want to grow the sport, the hashtag grow the sport, and I think that as much as you want to have everybody within the community and within the industry be really symbiotic and really supportive of each other, at some point business decisions have to be made, and I'm the kind of person who in that kind of situation tries to look at it from the business standpoint and also attribute the fact that it's long term, it's going to be better for the sport and its publicity in its profile. So
I mean, that argument could be used for so many different topics in the game. I mean, you and I talked about the other day, should players be able to listen to headphones? Jennifer Allen listening to her headphones during. Yeah. I mean, what other professional sport are they doing that?
Right.
Which, whatever.
People lost their mind when they couldn't smoke cigarettes for the entire round. You know,
right.
In a sanctioned tournament.
Marijuana being sponsors at tournaments, whatever. You could use that argument for so many different things, but at the end of the day, the sport needs to be viewed as a real thing and not just some hipster sport as it's been viewed in the past, right. Hippie sport. Right. It needs to be viewed, if it's ever going to grow to what people say they want it to be, and it needs to act legit and be legit, yeah. and it'll grow. But,
and I think it's come a long way, and it's going to continue to come a long way. But I should say it's got a long way yet to go. But even just in the handful of years, relatively speaking, that we've been playing, we've seen just an intense amount of growth.
Huge.
Can't even really be measured. I mean, it's insane. And
no.
I honestly feel lucky that I've gotten to experience some of it, being able to see the growth
firsthand. Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, just think about even the older guys that were playing in the 90s and stuff. And, I mean, it's a huge – you watch that Feldberg video. I can't even remember what it's called, but he's talking about how it used to be this family, everybody just kind of traveled together.
Or his infinite disc in the bag.
It's not talking about brand specific or company specific, and you've got to stick with only Discraft players or only Innova players or whatever. Everybody just played and hung out together, and it's obviously changed from that, but that's right. The way of the world anymore.
That's also which is our perspective as two guys that aren't in that. We're not in that elite echelon. Yeah. We're not. I can talk a little bit about. I went and played an unsanctioned event right here at my local course this weekend, and that camaraderie was definitely there. It's like. Yeah, people have different allegiances and people want to, make big deals about brands or whatever. But when you get down to the grassroots, that's still what it is, and it always will have some of that. But it's growing pains, man. That's really what it comes down to is figuring out how to. It's like an awkward teenager kind of figuring out how to fill out their own body and grow into what it is going to be. So
yeah,
maybe that's a weird analogy.
It was a little weird.
That's just what comes to mind.
It is what it is, man. So you played in a tournament this weekend.
Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit last weekend, but how? Let's hear about it.
Well, it didn't go spectacular. We can just say that, but it didn't go bad either. It was really windy and really cold for Southeast Texas. It was about 50 degrees and just wet. And windy, so it was pretty bad conditions to play in, especially for a lot of the guys down here that aren't used to playing in the wind. I think I fared pretty well for the wind, but I played with Paul Vandemark, who's a friend of ours. He's been playing for I think coming up on a year, or just over a year. Yeah. He was one of the first guys I connected with when I moved down here to Texas, and we weren't going to go out there and be world beaters, either one of us, but we finished up 2 under, and I kind of thought in my head going in that if we could get under par, that'd be a win, with the conditions and just with the good field of guys out there, and the fact that it was a more laid back tournament. It's hard to get that that competition intensity when it's an unsanctioned tournament, and half the guys are just there for the free beer. But
right.
It was a really fun time. It was Carbach Brewing or Carbach Brewing. I don't know how you say it down here, but people make fun of me for saying it like a Yankee. But Carbach Brewing
is what it is.
Yeah, it's fine. They put on the event, and I guess they do it every year, and they kind of rotate around town. And this year it just happened to be at this course, Agnes Moffett, where it was right around the corner from me. So it was a great time. They took real good care of us. Had some good door prizes, raffle stuff, and the first top three finishing team. It was a doubles tournament, so the top 6 guys. Number one team got 3 cases of beer. Number 2 team got 2 cases of beer. Number 1 team got a case of beer. So it's pretty decent payout for a non-sanctioned event.
I'd take it
for anybody. But
yeah,
it was a good time.
Sweet.
But I mean, if we want to kind of turn the corner here, what we really advertised, to the extent that we advertised, that this this show was going to be about, this episode was going to be about, was kind of you and I going over our bags and going step by step and maybe even doing some on-the-spot disc reviews. So we'll go back and forth. We'll start with putters. We'll move our way to mids and then on from there. And then whenever you want to put me on the spot, whenever I want to put you on the spot, hey, give me a review of that disc outside of just what you use it for in your comfort zone. What are its other capabilities, and we'll see how that rolls, huh?
Yeah.
Let me get us over here to the 2-shot.
Whatever works.
All right, you want to start us off?
Sure. You want to go?
Let's go putters up.
You want to go like all putters or
putting
couple
putters?
Putters,
Yeah,
switch?
Start with putting putters.
All right. Well, putting putters. You can find a full review of these on our YouTube channel, but the Discraft Luna prototype. Supposedly these are coming out here in a few weeks.
Production.
Production runs. So I'm really looking forward to getting a couple of those. I don't know. You can call me a fanboy if you want.
I will.
I don't really care if people do. I was in a spot where I've jumped around putters so much, and the Roach was working for me, but I wanted something a little bit. I don't know. The Roach seems a little beefy at times, so I wanted something a little shallower. These are definitely more overstable than the Roach, and so I've kind of learned to put it more on a hyzer line as it comes out of my hand, which was kind of a crazy concept to me before I got these. And I missed a lot of putts when I first got them, but now I've had them for a couple months now, and or a little over, I don't know, a month and a half, whenever they came.
Yeah, you got them right the day they came out, on the 11th.
Yeah, so I don't know. They're working for me right now. I love them for upshots. Anything, really like 200 in. I like to toss them right up there, and they land and stick right down on the ground. So sweet. That's what I'm putting with right now.
What's the plastic like on those? A lot of people who haven't been able to get their hands on them are wondering. It looks like Jawbreaker.
It's really
different.
It's really hard to explain. It's Jawbreaker, to me, the best way I can describe it is the Jawbreaker it's grippy, but it's more slick. Whereas this, you can feel like little, I don't know, it's gritty almost.
Gritty, sure.
Yeah, it's and it's a lot more firm, which is another reason I like it more than the Jawbreaker plastic. Jawbreaker, you can really bend.
I got a Jawbreaker bending GT right here, and especially when it gets a little warmer out, these feel a little flimsy.
Yeah. I used the Jawbreaker Roach last year. Didn't play a ton, but when it got warm, that was my complaint with them. So interested to see how these work when it's warmer out. But so far, I'm loving the Luna.
Nice. For me, my putting putters, and I actually I usually only bag one of these, but I have two, and it just kind of depends on the conditions. So these are the CT. Crazy Tough, but not really Crazy Tough. It's a rerun of the old Cam Todd blend Discraft Challengers, and these were from the 2015 Ledgestone. I grabbed about 4 of these, and 2 of them were like 167, 168, and I just couldn't throw them off the tee. And then these two were these two are max weight, and so I've kind of beaten this one in, the green one in, a little bit more. And this one's a little bit more fresh. So when I do bag both of them, this is the upshot putter, and this is the putting putter. But lately, I just forego the upshot putter in favor of something that's a little bit more stable, and I just use that green one for upshots if I want to throw a Challenger for upshots. But I really don't ever throw a Challenger for upshots. So other than the Lunas, what putters do you carry? And we'll move on to like upshots and driving putters.
Yeah, the Luna right now, like I said, I'm using for pretty much all upshots. Probably once the production runs come out, I'll probably get some for throwing off the tee. But right now, with it being cold, I don't want to throw them off the trees and get them all broken. And so I like I said, I've got the Roach. Just picked this one up. I've actually got, maybe in the background you can see it, but I've got one like this that I got from Sun King Discs, I don't know, about a month ago, and I throw all pink discs, if you don't know that about me. And I got the Roach, and it came, and it was purple, and I was so mad. And so when these released again last week, I went ahead and picked another one up, and this one came slightly less purple. It's still kind of purple.
It's like a pink and blue. I really think it's like a mind trick because of the Jawbreaker.
Yeah, it's the blue and the red just kind of makes it look more purple, but nonetheless, it's awesome. I like it. I have noticed that when I throw that, it will turn over pretty easily. So I use that for understable shots that I need. And then right now off the tee, I'm throwing the Big Z Roach. Just really like Big Z plastic, like the durability, like the feel, and like the Roach. So naturally, they all kind of go together, and those are what I'm throwing for my other putters. Because the other ones I'm going to consider a mid-range.
And we'll get to that.
Yeah, so, it doesn't set the table, but
but my upshot putters, like I said, I bagged that one putting putter, and so I usually have 3 upshot putters, and I have kind of a straight to slightly overstable. This is a pretty fresh Banger GT. I threw this a lot this weekend, just kind of because that Challenger was going too straight for me, but I didn't want to have to throw the zone. Which is, spoiler alert. But if you're watching this and you're wondering what's in our bag and what's going to come, here's a hint: it's pretty much all Discraft. So
it is all Discraft for me.
We would like to, we would like to in the future review some discs that are not Discraft and get us out of our comfort zone and give you guys some more content that's not Discraft related necessarily. But we do love Discraft, and we've never really tried to make that a secret. So
yeah, we're both from Michigan, so it only makes sense that we throw Discraft. But yeah, real fast while you're talking about that, talk about the little indent on the top, I'll call it. On your Banger GT and what that's all about for people that might not know.
Yeah, so the thumb track here, it's really just a spot for your thumb. And the reason I like it and the reason I threw Bangers in the first place, this was years and years ago when they had the ESP runs, I liked them because I felt like I could throw this putter and it wouldn't flip over on me like other putters that I would try to throw full power off the tee. And come to find out, it's really more about that thumb angle. Like the Banger is a pretty overstable putter, but it's not any more overstable than like, say, a Wizard or an Ion, which were some of the other ones I was trying to throw. So, the thing about this disc was it got my thumb more in that, if you can see, in that kind of towards the middle spot, and a little bit of pressure towards the outside as opposed to having my thumb more like here, which, when you're throwing a regular disc, that's just kind of where you tend to put it. And that was really something after watching another video of Michael Johansson talk about grip tips from like 2009 that I referenced in another video on this channel. It really kind of dawned on me that I can take this Jawbreaker Banger GT and I can throw it with my thumb here in this spot, and it's pretty overstable, or I can take this soft magnet and I can go even farther in to like where this inner circle is here on this Pro D ring. It's a lot more towards the middle, and I can throw it gripping way towards the middle of the disc, and I can throw them the same, and they fly almost the same. And so that really kind of opened my eyes to the fact that changing your thumb angle on a disc and then changing nothing else about your throw can give you a nice soft hyzer or hyzer flip, or moving your thumb to the outside, which I did with the Undertaker a lot this weekend in the tournament I played. That can give you a nice neutral S shot flight with something that would be pretty point and shoot or just straight stable otherwise. Yeah. So that's a trick that when I kind of put that into a complete thought in my game in like 2004, 2005, my whole game changed, because before that I was really just I was taking every disc and throwing it the exact same way, and then buying a bunch of discs so that different things would happen when I threw them all the same way. And now I can take, an Undertaker as an example, and I can throw a kind of a sweeping hyzer with it, or I can throw that Anheuser, Anheuser thumb placement straight shot, or I can put my thumb on that Anheuser angle and then use my body to throw an Anheuser and get cover a complete spectrum of overstable to understable shots with one disc. And that was something that I knew pros could do, and I just thought it was because they were pros. But as I started to learn and as I started to understand the grip mechanics in addition to the body mechanics, that was huge for me, and it really changed the way that I play. So That was a little aside. We'll drop the link to that grip tip video in the description of this video. But
sure.
my last putter, and this is a putter, is an ESP Zone. It's definitely a putter, and anybody who tells you different is lying to you.
All right.
But this one's actually pretty old and beat up. So I have this putter here. This Zone. This is a Big Z Zone from Ledgestone, 2018. This is one of the last discs I bought in Michigan before we moved down here. This and a couple Big Z Forces, and this new Zone from Ledgestone is really, really overstable. And so I put that other one, this older one, in here to kind of be something that was a little bit more overstable than that banger, that I could rip on and know that it wasn't going to flip on me, you know. So it does get into some mid-range-esque distance for sure, but 100%, 100% it's a putter, and there's no doubt about that. So
sure.
Moving on to mid-ranges.
Yeah, what's the weight on that Big Z Zone that you throw?
It is a one. It is a mystery. I think it's a 174.
Okay.
174, 173, 174.
Interesting. So jumping into mid-range now, I've got this Big Z Zone and this Jawbreaker Zone that I love these for mid-range shots. Anything, in that mid-range that is a little bit longer than a putter shot, or I don't know, I can really get behind and don't have to worry about it flipping or anything. I love the Zone for that. So you can call it a putter if you want. I believe that Mr. Paul McBeth referred to it as a mid-range in his video on Foundation's YouTube channel where he did the practice round.
Paul McBeth might call it a mid-range, but Jim Kenner, who, is Mr. Discraft, probably signed off on the fact that it's a putter. So,
well, that's fine. Neither of these say putt and approach on them. I'm sure there might be discs that do, zones that maybe do, but these specific ones don't. So I'm going to call them mid ranges.
All right. Well, you'll be a heretic and go to hell, but you can do whatever you want.
Whatever. I don't even care. As long as I've got these zones in my mid-range slot, then I'm happy. So the Big Z one, like you said, it's pretty beefy, but still gives me good range. And when there's not snow on the ground and ice, it will give a nice slide up to the basket. Whereas this Jawbreaker Zone, it's still pretty fresh. When it hits the ground, it just kind of sticks. And so they both work pretty well together for me. All right. You want me to go through the rest of them, or are you gonna?
We can go one by one. We can go through mold by mold. I will sneak one in here before we go. I do have this Jawbreaker Challenger that gets put in the bag sometimes. I forgot about it sitting over here in my stack of extras. So the first mid-range mold that I'll talk about that I throw is the Comet, and I really like the Comet. I have this MJ Tour Series Comet that I like a lot. It's a Big Z, or it's a Elite Z, so it's a little bit domier, and it's a really nice complement to this ESP Comet flag stamp that I got.
You said that same one.
Yeah, I got this one from Disc Bear, Jake Stahl in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Shout out to him. This one's a little bit flatter. I don't know if you can see very well. I can't tell exactly how flat I have it on my screen, but
good.
So this one flips a little bit more. And the interesting thing about these Comets is I've talked in a couple of past videos about the way that I grip putters when I throw them full power. Most people throw a power grip like this with this first finger really tucked in here.
Yep.
For a putter, I throw a power grip like this with it kind of on this second knuckle here as opposed to this first one. And it just keeps me from grip locking stuff and flipping putters over. And that was why I couldn't throw putters for the longest time, because they just come out of my hand. They'd hang up on my pointer finger, and then they just do this and flutter off to the right.
Yep.
So I've figured out that if I do that also with the Comet, I get a super controllable flight. And they don't go as far, but they go farther than putters, so they're mid ranges if we're using that standard. And if I put my thumb on this ESP one and on the Z, they both have that kind of outer ring. If I put my thumb right on it or just inside of it, they just go dead straight. And if I move it to the outside, there's a hole at Agnes Moffett where I play that's like, I don't know, maybe 150, 170 feet straight, and then a right angle turn to the right. So it's either a really high, like Spike Heiser forehand shot for a right-handed player, or a very, very technical backhand shot, Anheuser. And that's when I throw this Comet. It's because I can just keep a neutral thumb location, but a lot of body Anheuser, and get it up in the air, and it starts to turn, and it flies in like a backwards L-shaped shot where it goes, the 175 this way, and then the extra 90 or 100, the other way that I need. And I've not found any other disc outside of a really beat up rock that does that as well as this Comet does, and the Comet has more glide. So, yeah.
I used to bag that same American flag Comet as you, and I hated the thing. For one, it was bigger than any other disc in my bag, so I felt like it was like a frisbee, and it drove me nuts. I think it drove me nuts so much because I couldn't throw it, and so every time I'd look at my bag and see that ginormous disc, I would just get so mad. But I used to throw it like, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, and like you had mentioned, you really have to have touch with it, and you have to be strategic with it, and I at that time did not, and would just try to chuck it as hard as I could, and it would just dump, and it was bad. I do want to pick another one up and try one, but for now I don't bag one because I sold that one, got it out of my house and away from me because I was so frustrated with it at the time. And anyway, on to the next slot. Right now I've got Nate Doss TI Buzz, as well as the Paul McBeth new Buzz that just came out, which right now they're flying fairly similar for me. The McBeth Buzz, it seems to be more beefy than any other Buzz that I've thrown, and probably part of that is just Paul wanting it to be a little bit more overstable. Sure. But as I throw it, it's starting to beat in more and more, and it's starting to take off to the right. But it's still dumping pretty hard left at the end for me. And the other part of that is probably just it's so cold here in Michigan that it can't get its full flight. But these TI Buzzes I really like because you can just hum chuck these things and know exactly where they're going. I used to have a silver one that was 181 grams, and it was just a beast, and I hit so many trees with that thing, and it just never changed its flight. It just stayed the same. But it was such a pain to find in the woods because it was silver, and so now I picked up a pink one that hopefully I'll be able to find. But Buzz always is going to be in my bag. It doesn't really matter what plastic. I would like to get a big Z Buzz, or another one of these McBeth Buzzes just to have as well, but for now, these two are what I'm rocking.
Nice. Well, it looks a little bit familiar because I too have a TI Buzz.
No.
I got this one. I think it was maybe 2012, 2011. It wouldn't have been 2011. This was a Nate Doss fundraiser one. So that it's other than the fact that it's got some color shift plastic where it kind of goes from blue to purple, I think it's essentially just a production run of the disc. But Nate signed a bunch of them, and that is not his signature there. If you can see it, that is mine. His wore off, but I think it was worth it because his signature was absorbed into the disc, and then I got like 3 aces with it. So only disc I've ever aced with. But I love this Buzz because this is my most controllable Buzz. I can throw this if I really put it on a lot of hyzer, it holds an extreme hyzer. If I throw it in neutral, which is the shot I use for it most, it flies. It gives me a touch of left or right, and then a big hookup. But it doesn't like to go in hyzer as much as this one does. So this is my 10-year. This is my most beat-in and my most flippy Buzz for sure. I think it might be a little bit lighter weight. I picked this one up at a garage sale for $3, so I got super lucky.
Didn't you got like a stack of discs or a few discs?
I got a few Discraft out of production discs, and I paid like a total of $8. But this was in like 2016 I got this. So 10 years at that point, new ones were going for like, $50-$60. And I picked this one up because the 10 year that I bought when they put them out, originally I'd given to a friend for no money, which was really dumb. But that's something that I did. So, and then I also have this this new Macbeth Buzz, kind of a red, white, and bluey flag stamp. I really love the swirl. It's really gorgeous. I'm kind of trying to protect this one right now because I can give this one pretty much everything I've got, and it just holds that nice straight line with a little bit of a slow right to left and then a bigger one as it slows down. So this is like my favorite kind of buzz shot to throw, is just that you know where it's going to go, and then you know it's going to give you a certain amount of fade. And I don't want that I don't want it to go. And this is ESP plastic, so it'll go quicker than a Z one would. But
that's what I'm worried about as well. Which is funny that you say that, because I got one that I wish I would have gotten a little bit better swirl out of. Not very good at all on this. But at the same time, if I would have gotten a really cool swirl one, I think I would have been in the same boat as you and not wanted to throw it. So this one is just kind of meh, and I just kind of chuck it and don't care about it.
Right.
Cool. Next slot, or you got more in there?
No, that's it for the regular buzzes.
Regular buzzes.
We'll call it next slot.
Yeah, in the understable slot where you're throwing the Comet, I've got the Meteor. Just gives me a better understable shot. Like I said, the Comet was a little out of control for me at the time. I do want to try it again because there are times where I wish that this didn't go as far to the right when I'm throwing right hand, backhand. And right now I'm not throwing it a ton, just because it's so cold and it just kind of tends to fly straight for me right now.
Sure.
Slightly to the right, but I know once summer comes, I used to have an ESP one that you had given me actually, that it beat up really fast and it would just dump to the right, which was good on certain shots, but for the most part it was pretty out of control. So I'm hoping that this Z holds its value, I guess, a little bit better and doesn't beat in as quick. And then the Buzz OS, I've got in my bag right now. Big Z Buzz OS. It's really in my bag right now, holding some spots so my discs don't tip over. Probably going to come out just because I don't know. The Macbeth Buzz and the TI Buzz kind of fit the same spot as this, because this has been beat in and it doesn't turn straight left anymore. It flies pretty straight before it dumps, and that's really what those do, and what some of these next fairway drivers do for me. So probably going to come out of the bag. Might replace it with something, probably won't though.
Fair enough. I also have a Buzz OS. I have the one from the 2015 Memorial, so it's pretty cool. It's got the Crystal Sparkle, Crystal Z, and then it's got this underside flag stamp with the B there. This thing, I've thrown it a lot, and it's still as overstable as the day that I got it in 2015. So it's just a meat hook. That's really all it is. But it's perfect for spike hyzers because it is a little bit soft. It's like the ESP kind of blend. So anything that's like a 220 to 280 foot hyzer shot, this is what I throw. Spike hyzer specifically, more so than anything else, or forehands to get out of trouble. When I'm looking for an overstable shot that starts flat, I throw the Hornet. So these are out of production now, so I'm a little bit concerned about how I'm going to fill that kind of straight to overstable shot that I throw flat and doesn't just tank. But I do think I should probably check out one of the Big Z Buzz OSs and see if it's a little bit less beefy than this Crystal one, because that's what you've told me is that they are. But
I loved it when I first got it. I had a Z Buzz OS right when they came out, and that thing was so beefy. And then I got this Big Z, and it flew a lot better for me. But then it just kind of beat in and doesn't do what I want it to do anymore. But out of the box, they're pretty great.
So what I like about the Hornet, it's a smaller diameter, it's smaller across than the Buzzes are. And I think they're actually a little bit faster than the Buzzes, but the rim on them reminds me of the Nebula. and I don't know if I was still throwing Nebulas by the time that.
Yeah.
But I loved the Hornet Nebula Buzz combo for that overstable. Nebula was straight, and then the buzzes I had were a little lighter weight and beat up. And I wish that the Nebula got put in production and that I could still find some, but they're gone forever, and I'll probably never have another one again. So
no, probably not.
I keep the Hornet, which is now too going a wayside because the profile reminds me a lot of the Nebula, and I really liked it. So, alrighty,
cool.
What are you going to start with for your fairways? Understable or overstable?
I'm gonna go more understable.
Okay, fair enough.
Disc that was in my bag a few years ago, took out, put back in, took out, now back in, probably for good, at least for now. The Z Mantis, we had Chip on a few weeks ago, and he was raving about him, and I had actually just picked this one up when we had him on, and so I was just starting to throw it again, and really love this disc. Just picked up a Big Z one, which is actually an older run.
Without
I didn't even
the name on it.
I didn't when I got it online. I didn't even notice, and some guy had commented on it that it was an older run. Threw it this weekend. Don't really have much to say about it because I didn't throw it enough to really know what it does. But right now, that the Mantis, I really like it for those hyzer flip shots. Just goes and goes and goes. I think in the past I tended to not throw discs like that because they're a little bit slower and it's a mental thing. Like, well, I can't just step up there and put everything I have into these discs. Yeah, because they're either just going to dump right or I'm going to throw them straight into the ground. And really that's been the big movement behind reshaping how I, stock my bag, if you will, is just learning the disc and learning how to throw different shots with different discs rather than just one way, like you had said with the Comet. And really the Mantis has been kind of the leader of that disc group for me because you can't just get up there and chuck it with everything you have. Yeah. But if you just throw it on a nice, easy line, that thing will go forever. Definitely a disc that is going to stay in my bag for a while now anyway.
Yeah. So in the understable slot for me, we just did a whole video on them, but right now it's currently the XL and the Mantis along with you. And the Mantis is, and I referenced this in the video, we'll drop that in the description too so people can go check it out because it was about a 15-minute breakdown of the entire Discraft fairway lineup.
Yeah.
But the Mantis to me is like the next evolution of the XL. The XL is going out of production. I'm not going to be able to get my hands on them for much longer. Especially not in ESP. I think they made Z's for a little bit longer, but I might have that backwards actually. But when the XL was fresh, I could put 100% power behind it, and it would give me a nice left-to-right turn and land pretty much straight. And that's pretty much exactly what this Mantis does. I was playing in the wind this weekend. This was after we made the review video. Playing in the wind this weekend, whenever there was a tailwind drive, I would just throw this with that neutral thumb, maybe slightly inside for the hyzer release, give it everything I had, and it would just go dead straight, basically.
Yep.
It was like there was like a 420-foot hole that I threw it pretty low to keep it out of the wind, and it still got the whole way there, and it was on the exact line where I released it. It didn't move off the line, basically. It was insane. So the XL will probably be coming out of the bag, as much as it breaks my heart to say that, just because it's not super good of an idea to keep out of production discs in your bag, because then
that's how they get us, though.
I know that's how they get you to pay $60 for the disc
production.
But then my other one is kind of my trick disc. This is an old 4-point Z Talon, and it's so beat up that it has just a ton of turn. But whereas that Mantis and the XL don't have so much hookup, this thing fights back really hard because it's that Talon mold, and it's got that really overstable underside of the wing. So this is like for when I need to get around something, for basically for holes that are really technical. If I can control the angle of my release to get that certain amount of hyzer flip or hyzer flip to turn, and then I can always count on that big hookup at the end. So I put this with my understable ones because it has so much turn in the first part of the flight. So
yeah, moving up a little bit more stable. is the Undertaker, which you put in that video that you did an awesome job on. Undertaker, really, if I can throw it pretty much somewhat on the same line as the Mantis, it's going to go fairly straight. If I'm into a headwind or a slight headwind, I'll throw the Undertaker over the Mantis just because it's a little bit more stable. It's in the TI plastic, so it's even a little bit more stable.
Sure.
I only have one of those right now. You'll see pretty much all my discs. I have two, one as my main thrower and one as a backup just in case I lose one. But I've got another one coming in the mail. Should be here Friday, so excited to get a second one in the bag. But then right after that are these vultures that I've got a Big Z and a TI vulture, which I honestly I barely played. Well, I don't know. I kind of took a year off last year, and when they came out, I didn't really think too much of it. And so this off season, I remember talking to you about it and just, what are they going to be like? Are they going to be a meat hook? I was really hesitant on getting them. And I picked up this Big Z first and have absolutely loved this thing. I can throw it as hard as I want and know exactly where it's going. And it just seems to glide forever and ever and ever and ever. There's a lot of times right now where I'm throwing this off the tee just because I know what I'm getting out of it. I know it's not going to flip over on me, and I know it's going to go just as far as any of my distance drivers that I could bag would go. But I still want something a little bit more beefy, and so I picked up this TI in a heavier weight, hoping that will fit the bill. Still thinking about checking out the Machete for those overstable skip shots, but with snow on the ground right now, it's not even worth testing. So I'm sticking with the vultures. Definitely all season, but I don't know if I want to add a Machete to that mix yet or not.
I get you. Again, lots of similarities. I bagged one Big Z Undertaker, and I do have a first run Z that's kind of the backup to this, but it's very, very rarely in the bag. Talking about that Mantis shot from this weekend playing my tournament where when I had a tailwind, I could throw it, neutral thumb, give it everything I had, and it would do a little bit of left to right turn and finish really straight. When I had a crosswind or even a slight headwind this weekend, I would take this and I'd move that thumb a little bit more to the outside, more like right where the rim meets the flight plate, and I'd give it everything I had, and it would give me that same shot. So I threw literally, like in my mind, I can picture it. I wish I had a camera there to roll in the footage because it was insane. 2 shots on 2 different holes, but it was literally the identical flight to each other. The Undertaker and the Mantis. So that just kind of shows you the versatility. And I didn't sky him in the air like I did shooting that review video when I was crunched for time and trying to kill him.
That'll happen.
But I also kind of noticed something in shooting that review video that I was reverting back to some old bad habits in my form. So corrected that, and things flew a lot straighter and flatter for me at the tournament this weekend. So that was nice. But then I also do have the Big Z Vulture too. What I like about the Vulture, and you kind of spoke to it a little bit, is for how overstable it is, and it is an overstable fairway driver. Like it's not a control, straight to stable driver. It's that driver that is you're gonna put it on its line, and it's gonna stay on its line, and then it's gonna fade. But it gives so much fade with so much glide that I've never seen a driver that glides as far as it does for how overstable of a driver it is. So that's pretty cool, and I do like that about it. And then the one non-Discraft disc that does make its way into my bag. This is one that I've had for a while, and it has kind of been overtaken by the Undertaker, but it still finds its way into the bag every once in a while.
Overtaken by the Undertaker. Overtaker?
Interesting. I didn't even realize that. Interesting little play on words. I didn't even plan that.
Sorry.
But it is the Legacy Rival. So this was pretty much something that I just got because it was a T-Bird that didn't say T-Bird on it. And Discraft at the time did not have the Undertaker. It was kind of a spiteful buy, I won't lie. But it's a great disc. It literally is based off an 11-time T-Bird mold. They come in premium plastic, and I threw it for years until I got an Undertaker at the AM Nationals. I wasn't playing there. I just showed up there with my wife and bought a bunch of discs from the Fly Mart.
Thanks for clarifying that.
But
that's awesome.
So that's that rounds out my fairways.
Yeah,
what I would consider my fairways anyway.
moving on to distance drivers, as if there's a huge difference for me anyway. Between, I mean, there's a little bit of a difference, but I find myself reaching more for the fairway drivers than I do the distance drivers anymore, just because I know my arm speed and I know where those things are going compared to a high speed distance driver. And so I've really, I used to have forces in the bag, I used to have nukes in the bag, and really have just tooled back from those and just stay within my game. So a disc that came out a few years ago, that when it came out I was super pumped because I heard it was high speed and for lower arms, and I was pumped and I got a first run. That is the Thrasher. This one is a TI Thrasher. This disc rarely comes out of my bag and rarely will come out of my bag unless it comes out permanently. But it's just the only time that I really use it is on a wide open hole with a tailwind, because right now it's just so flippy. Yes, you can control it, but if you miss the line or miss the throw just a little bit, that thing can get out of control real quick. But when you do hit it perfectly, it is a beautiful disc that will go for miles and miles with hardly any effort. But if you put just too much into it, it's going to dump straight right on you and get out of hand real quick. So it's a good disc that can be used when used properly, but if you don't use it properly, then it's rough. And then the only other two discs in my bag are the cranks. I've got a Big Z and a Z. These things have been my favorite disc since 2016. I've got a few in the bag right now that are giving them a run for their money, but so far, crank is still my number one distance driver, big disc. And I know a lot of people out there are probably laughing at that because it's not usually considered a big disc for a lot of people. A lot of pros don't really throw cranks. But for me in my game, I know that if I were to throw a force, it's going to be a waste of time or anything up there in that overstable side of things. The crank is just the right disc. It does have a little bit bigger rim, but it's I don't know, it's a comfortable rim, and these two discs are flat, and so they don't, I don't know, it's just a comfortable disc that I know I can throw, and I'll get that nice S curve and good dependable finish to the left.
Yeah, I love the crank, and I'll share my thoughts here coming up in a minute, but crank's a great disc. I know, like you said, a lot of pros don't throw it out. Tim Barham, it's his Tour Series disc, and so one throws them.
Sure,
I love them, but so that's your bag. That's everything in your bag, right?
That's everything. I this off season I literally sold everything and got rid of it all and started fresh, literally from a bag to disc to everything. I had like 4 discs at one time and have completely rebuilt this in the last couple months, thanks to a birthday in January that allowed me to get a lot of plastic and a bag. But yeah, I like to just keep it simple, and I think there's 11 molds in there right now that really could be 9 molds, 8 molds. I just like to keep it simple and throw what I feel comfortable, and I'm excited for this year to play some tournaments and see how that method works out, because hopefully it works out good. If it doesn't, then I wasted a lot of time and money, but I think it will. So far, just playing rounds around here has been good because I don't think about shots. I get up there, I know what disc I'm throwing because I don't have 16 different choices to choose from. It's one disc for that shot.
Yeah. So in other words, you're exactly the opposite of me, because I have 9 more discs in my bag now that your bag is done, and you have 11 total molds, and I have 19 total molds. So out of the remaining discs that I have here, let me look and see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 molds, 9 discs. Right? 1, 2. Yep. 7 molds, 9 discs.
I used to be that same way, so I can't say too much.
The thing is that I throw them all, and I throw them all in very specific situations. So I guess we'll just get into it. The first one is this Flex Surge SS. And this is a very straight flying control driver with a lot of distance. And when I say straight flying, it means it ends up in a like right in line with where I started, but it is very, very left to right turn. A lot of right to left fade.
Yep.
What I love this disc for more than anything else is hyzers to get over stuff. So if there's trees and I want to throw a hyzer, putting this on an extreme hyzer flips it up almost to flat, and then it tracks a long way. So it gets me over a bunch of trouble. But on an open fairway, I guess I should say on a fairway that had like a long shot with a left to right like gradual curve, where I needed more distance than a fairway and I couldn't throw the Mantis, that's what this is in the bag for. And tunnel shots on extreme hyzer, throw it hard, flip it up to flat and it goes straight. That's pretty much why I bagged the Surge.
Perfect.
Another kind of utility disc. Most of these next few are utility discs. Is the Heat. This is a new one to my bag. This is basically just max distance turnover. Hyzer flip to big turnover that finishes like kind of like throwing a Comet, but throwing it way, way, way farther. That kind of backwards L shape. And rollers, if I ever throw a roller, which literally never happens. So, but I have it if I need it. The Machete, the Big Z Machete. This is basically a get out of trouble disc for me. Forehand flick rollers and skip shots. So this, when I throw this on the ground, there's one hole at my local course where I put it on the ground about 100 feet out in front of the tee pad on a hyzer angle, and it gives me two big skips. The first one kind of gets me over to the basket, and then the second one kind of flashes me across the basket. And altogether, the two skips cover probably about 100 feet of right to left movement. Huge, huge skips, which is useful to get down fairways around corners. If you have a dogleg right hole and it's wooded. A hole at Wildwood comes to mind, but that doesn't help anybody that's listening that hasn't played it. But a hole that's wooded that has like an equal amount of distance to the right hand or to the left hand right angle turn, and you don't make it to the corner. This disc allows you to put this disc down on the ground right at that corner and get two big skips up the fairway to try and give yourself a look at a birdie putt if it's a par 4 or a par putt if it's a par 3. So that's why I bag this, is because it gives me two big skips.
So real quick, you and I have talked about it, but the difference between the Machete and the Vulture, because the Vulture is pretty overstable. Machete is also very overstable, but I was stuck on which one do I buy, and we talked about it a little bit. So just talk about the difference between those two a little bit.
So for me, I never throw – I throw the Vulture when I want to go 320 to 380 feet. I throw the Machete 100 feet into the ground. That's literally the only time
for that meat hook utility shot. Okay.
Yep. And I throw it for forehand rollers because I can kind of put it on a 45-degree angle down into the ground if I'm in trouble, somewhere between 30 and 60 feet in front of me, and it tracks around, and then it gives that overstable dome side roll. So that's literally all I use it for. I have never thrown it because of a headwind ever. I literally only throw it for utility shots.
Yeah, I don't hear of a lot of guys that do throw it like for distance for sure because it's so overstable.
Right. I think the Raptor is gonna be a good disc for that. Next
that's what it sounds like.
Little less overstable, decent amount of glide. Because that's the other thing about the Machetes. It has zero glide. I mean, when I throw it at the ground, it wants to fall on the ground. Like that's what it wants to do. So, but I mentioned how I throw the Machete because it gives me two big skips to clear some distance. I throw the Predator because it goes straighter for longer and gives me one big skip. So I can reach out and touch 300 feet with this pretty easy because it's pretty beat in, and it holds that straight line for a really long time. And then as it starts tailing off, it gets to the ground. It gives me one big skip and then settles down because it's a little bit deeper. The Machete is really, really flat. Let me pull it back out here. The Machete is really, really flat. And the flat on both sides. And the Predator has a little bit higher of a profile if you were to sit them right on the ground next to each other. And so that extra little bit of lip on that second skip just makes that second skip either a small one or non-existent. So I still bag the Predator for that shot. And then I have the Punisher, which this disc is – I've probably thrown this disc less than 10 times total. What I throw this disc for is really hard anhyzer shots that I need to cut back left really quick but still give me distance. So I'm not going to throw the Predator because it's not going to get me as much distance, and it's going to cut back left and skip. I'm going to throw it on anhyzer really hard. It's going to come back. It's going to cut left and then kind of give me a more gradual, more neutral flight. So this is for like wooded holes where I don't have a forehand, so I got to get creative. I got to throw something that's gonna where it might be a forehand hyzer flip shot that's really easy. I need something that I can throw an anhyzer that's gonna finish relatively straight and not skip away and get me back in trouble on the left hand side of the fairway. So
that's the other part of dumbing down my bag is I used to have all those discs for say forehand shots that I didn't have before, and this year I'm really dedicating to improving a forehand or getting a forehand altogether, because before this year I didn't have one, and it's slowly starting to come around. I'm really liking the Vulture for those, or even the Mantis. So I think that right there cuts down a lot of my disc compared to what you have.
Right, and if I were to commit to that thing, I think we were talking about with Chip a couple weeks ago, learning to throw. I've learned to throw all these different angles with a backhand shot with all these different discs. Learning all those things with a disc with a forehand shot and opening up all the different ways to throw a hole that way. Committing to that is really, that would instantly simplify my bag probably. But right now it's just kind of patchwork. So, all right, now I have 2 molds of distance drivers, and then we'll land this plane. I have this Jaybird Player Series 2016 crank. It's a pretty flat Z crank. It is 174, but this is my flippy crank, actually, kind of surprisingly enough. It's Z and it's flat. I guess maybe the flat ones are flippy, but this one out of my hand turns over, gives me a big left to right pan, and then hooks up and this is my farthest flying disc for sure. I can throw it as hard as I want, and I know it's never going to like cut roll, but it gives me a lot of turns, so I got to give it a little bit of air to kind of work out and finish relatively straight, maybe a little bit on like a hyzer finish off my line. Then I have this First Run ESP crank, and this is my most thrown distance driver, hands down, because it just goes straight. I mean, I don't know what the difference is between the first runs and the production runs, if there is any at all. It could just be the ESP plastic, but this goes. It gives me a little bit of left to right. It's like when I watch the pros throw like a well-worn in destroyer, where it gives you that kind of stand up, or if you throw it flat, it gives you a little bit of left to right and then a big old hookup. That's what this disc does for me. And this is my farthest. I said this was my farthest flying disc in the bag. Before I started, obviously, I mentioned I've reverted back to some bad habits. When I really had it dialed in, this disc was my farthest flying disc, and I could throw this like 440. That hole at Deerfield Park that's extremely long to the tunnel shot approach, I could pretty much park that tunnel shot approach for that last 60 feet on that 500-foot hole. So
perfect.
And then I got the Big Z Zone. Big Z Zone. Big Z.
It's now a driver. It's not
now a driver. Yeah, it's
distance driver.
It's been in every class of discs today. The Big Z Force. This is the only force that I can throw for any amount of distance, really. These Big Z runs are kind of that same well-worn destroyer kind of thing, where they'll stand up a little bit and they'll fade a little slower. I'm hoping that the Kong is exactly like this. That's really what I hope, is that the Kong is like slightly slower maybe version of the Force, but with that out-of-the-box stand-up or throw it flat, give it a little left to right with a lot of fade, obviously. Still fights the wind crazy good. And then this old ESP Force. Before
we started the show, I actually saw a Kong for sale for $160. If you want to get on there and pick one up.
No, I'm not about that. Not even close.
Oh,
that's
my God.
Insane. People are crazy.
I thought it was crazy when I bought the Lunas and the Macbeth Buzz, because that's $60 worth of discs right there, $20 a piece, and that still feels steep to me, because you can get online and pick up cheap. I mean, $13 discs anymore. $160 for a test flight disc is
bananas.
It's crazy. But I think that speaks to what we talked about at the first part of the show. It's just the sport is blowing up so fast, and people want whatever they can hold on to and say,
I
I was
there
there
when
when this came out.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean maybe the Kong goes on and is like the greatest disc of all time, and these people are sitting on a gold
and
mine.
Paul
I don't know.
wins 19 more world championships and is the GOAT.
I mean that you never know. You never
Until
know.
he's 40 or whatever.
I'm not willing
50.
to take that chance that a piece of plastic is worth $160.
No, sir.
Because even then, when I buy that, I'm not throwing it. It's going
Right.
on the wall.
It's hanging
And
on the wall. Yep.
I'm not a wall hanger guy, as you can tell. The discs behind me are nothing special. They're
Yeah.
just-
Mine
just-
are two
so.
tournament stamped nukes, ESP nukes. This one actually over here, this was a 2010 nuke. So at some point they tweaked the mold, and this one is shallower rim wise than this one. I'm thinking about maybe putting these in the bag at some point. Trying to kind of take them out to the field and work with them. I used to throw nukes and
get up to 20 molds.
yeah, get up to 20 molds. Got to crest that 20 mold mark.
Just get that even number, man.
Yeah, but
Nukes are good discs.
yeah, especially this one, this pink one over here. That's the 2010 mold. Really, really nice. I took them out to the field the other day. This one was way more understable. Crazy more understable, and this one was basically just a neutral flying straight shot. So
yeah, nukes are good discs. For me, it came down to rim size because the nuke and the crank were both great discs for me, but the crank feels a little bit more comfortable in the hand, so I went with the crank. But I like the nuke as well.
nice. Well,
Yeah.
I guess
So-
one last thing. Shout out to Flight Towel. I got mine. Got mine this week.
Perfect. Got mine on my bag. Yeah.
And then I did also pick up the Paul Macbeth special, the Adidas
Yeah, you did.
Terex.
Call me the fanboy.
Yeah, these are really sweet though. These are the Gore-Tex ones.
Those are cool.
And they're really comfy. The lace system's really sweet. I was a little bit worried that they're gonna be too narrow for my big fat feet, but they're actually great. And I was up, to my ankles pretty much in water at different points this weekend during the tournament, and they held up great. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't think we got any chats in the YouTube chat, but we've had a couple viewers pop in and out. So hopefully, if you're still here, go give us a follow on Instagram at DG or Disc Golf Central _. I think I actually have it wrong on the screen. I think I have it DG Central _ It's Disc Golf Central _
You do. You do. How embarrassing.
That's terrible. I'll change that for next week. We'll bring our best foot forward next
Hey,
week. But
that's all right.
follow us too. You can see our Instagram handles there. And we'll be back next week. Do we want to plug our guest next week? Have we nailed that down?
We have, but we haven't officially. I mean, we have officially, but we haven't touched base in a few weeks, so I don't want to.
Sure.
I don't want to say too much, but
we had
good
Scott from Flight Towel on. There's a lot of companies putting out really good disc golf related products, and we're hoping to get somebody else kind of like that on. So
yeah,
check out some of our past live streams. Check out our reviews. Subscribe to this channel. Hit that like button, and we will see you guys next week.
see.